Welcome, friends at Puebla, Mexico. I've been asked to say a few words about how one can approach a post-human life on an everyday basis. The approach that I would like to present has to do with preparing ourselves from the very morning, the time we wake up, and leading a life of mindfulness towards posthumanism. In the morning, when one wakes up, it is a good meditation to turn within and reflect on who we are. We take ourselves to be what the world tells us that we are. And this kind of a picture of ourselves, which is in fact not a coherent picture, but a picture composed of many facets, like a cubist painting that we carry with us. And as we are called into being in the world, we bring different facets into action. We engage different facets. We may even go one step further and say that the agency in engaging these facets is often at a minimum. It is that these facets are pulled into the world through the invitations of the world. So the first meditation is to question who we are and how we became who we are, and what is it that is calling us into existence in our everyday life. We find that we are called, a certain term is interpellated into the world through some major images that make us who we are. We are made into consumers and producers of a world market. That is one of our identities that is given to us. We are made into citizens of a certain kind of ideological system that is given to us by the nation state. We are made into beings who know the world in a certain way, and that is given to us by the Knowledge Academy. So these are various kinds of forms of being in the world that are given to us, that we are co-opted by, that we become. And we are called into the world through the images of these particular large global institutions that are today the institutions that make up the world and the subject, the object and the subject of this particular world. If we reflect on this, then we find that there is something in us that can observe these things, that is free of these things, that is not immediately identified with these labels of the world market, the nation state, and the knowledge academy that make us who we are. We can go one step further in our individual selves and conceive of the moment at which we came into this world as a world, not just as an earth, but as a world of signs and significations. This happens at a certain moment when we enter into language. Language is a entire system of signs that is a common acceptance of humanity, firstly of the humanity that surrounds us, the environment, humanity of the environment that surrounds us, but that itself is in our world of deep interdependence and globalism, conditioned and made into what it is as a variety of even flavor of a world humanity. So, as I said, these various kinds of integrated beings in the world are what we internalize from the time we enter into language. We can go one step further in history and think of how we became who we are, how we became this integrated subject. And that it takes us to the whole birth of modernity as a episteme that goes back to the Enlightenment and follows through colonialism to become the world. Here in Puebla, you can sense the fact of the collision of worlds, of a pre-modern world and of a non-Western world with the Western world that is a post-colonial world. All these worlds exist, though there is a pressure to make us into something which is standardized, global, and a world that we can feel commonly that we have as a shared world. It is important for us to realize that we do not belong necessarily to any of these commonalities, that there is something in us that is free of all these, that can actually observe and find in ourselves that freedom. This kind of a meditation to start the day is something that enables us to enter the world with openness. It is an open world that is a project of world making, a making of the world in which we are subjects that have a different responsibility, a different ethical stance towards making a world that is not the humanistic world of the post-enlightenment era that has brought us to the precipice of our present crisis. This crisis is a crisis of the others that have been left behind, suppressed, and oppressed by modernity, by humanism. So, in the opening that I spoke about, one can turn to the world with a new kind of attention. In all the events of our day, can we find something more than what is given to us as a signifier? If we look at trees, if we encounter animals, if we encounter other cultures, if we encounter objects of the common world, can we listen and see more deeply than what these things are being made to tell us they are? Can we engage in deep listening and deep seeing? By deep listening and deep seeing, I mean listening and seeing that challenges the definition of things that are given to us. Can we open ourselves to messages in everything around us that they have not yet disclosed, with that faith that there is something in us that can respond to it? There is something in us that is equally other as that which calls us from the other. So that kind of an engagement of deep relationality with the world can open up a different kind of praxis towards the posthuman. This praxis is one of coming intimately close to the other that has no name, but in a sense is our deepest self, a self that does not define itself, that does not even offer the whole of itself, but that is always intimately close to us, that we feel is part of us and yet other than us, a horizon of ourselves. So I invite you to this meditation for today's conference and to this existential posthumanism that we hope to study and we hope to engage with in this conference. Additionally, as I said at the beginning of this conference, this is an opportunity for me to invite you to the new conference at the end of this year, in January 26 in India, a conference that is preceded by a camp of 3 days in early January at the intentional township of Auroville in South India, minded towards a post-human life, and then to a international conference in Kolkata that will be held between, I believe, the 15th and 16th or thereabouts of January. Welcome to this follow-up conference.